The calls keep getting better and better. Let's talk about the weekend, Bellator.
All right.
Let's do it.
Yep.
This is an opinion that I didn't agree with, but, we share all kinds of opinions
Yeah,
in
sure.
MMA. So.
Hi, this is Tommy calling from Madison, Wisconsin. My question is, talking about the Chael and Fedor fight, did it not seem like one of the sloppiest and ugliest fights you guys have ever seen? Chael's takedown attempts looked like they were happening in super slow motion. So my question is, does Fedor stand a chance against a much more agile Ryan Bader in the Grand Prix final? Thanks.
So 2 things I want to address here. Do you agree with this guy's analysis of the fight? Was it a sloppy, slow fight? I thought it was a pretty competitive, and both guys looked pretty crisp.
Here's what I thought. I think the first punch rattled Chael a little bit. It's always bad body language if you see a grappler shoot and then they don't get it and then they immediately keep flopping to their back. That's one of those telltale signs, like when a striker stops throwing or when a grappler does that it's always a bad sign. So, was it the prettiest technical fight? No. But I thought the one against Tito was, there's many I would pick that were worse. In fact, as I mentioned before, I just showed you some of the great things Fedor did. Yeah, did Chael make some mistakes? He did. But there were a lot of positives to take from that as well.
Yeah, and he got that low single. He looked good. I thought Chael, even in defeat, looked better than his previous performances. And, man, Fedor looked just, rejuvenated. It was incredible. So the second part of this question was, what are his chances against Bader? Fedor's, obviously.
All right.
What do you think?
I keep counting Fedor out, and he keeps proving me wrong. So I'll say this. It seems like Bader deserves to be the favorite. I think he's going to win. But Fedor, man, he, as I showed here just recently, he's got a few, major adjustments. I don't know, but he's got some nice tweaks, and they're making a big difference. I think it's actually pretty competitive.
I think so, too. And at the open workouts, man, he looked good. He looked like he was packing power. Yeah, man, he looks good. I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than what people make it out to be. And we'll see what happens. Also, Ryan Bader has had issues with guys that have, really heavy striking, right? Really good striking. Anthony Johnson is a good example. So we'll see how much he buys into, the Fedor aura, the Fedor, legend. So I think that's going to be key mentally for Ryan Bader.
All right.
Now let's talk about rivalries.
Yep.
Hey, what's up, Luke? It's Michael from New York. I have a question. What do you think is a rivalry that has more bad blood? Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov, or Daniel Cormier versus John Jones? All right, let me know. Thanks, man.
For the reasons that what Daniel Cormier just said on the show, I'm going to say Daniel Cormier, John Jones, because he's right. Conor was just saying stuff to sell. These two guys hate each other, and they mean every word they say. So because it's two-way traffic, I'm going to go with DC Jones. Do you agree?
I would somewhat agree. I mean, there was no, hey, DC didn't go, hey, this is just business, Jones, or vice versa. That never went down. But I think there's so much bad blood on the other side with Khabib that I think it evens out. I think it's a draw, man. I think it's a draw.
In other words, is Habib's bad blood greater than or equal to
combined
Jones plus DC? Yeah, you might be right, actually.
I think so. I mean, Khabib, this is not a game. I feel like Khabib is willing to take things maybe farther than Jones or DC would.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we just saw that crazy.
Just the only thing for me is that when two guys are so poisonous, it's like a bad marriage. It's like, it's so ugly.
Yeah.
Versus just one guy who's consumed with rage.
Plus, they're also the nature of the fights. Both fights were really competitive. The DC and Jones. Obviously with the McGregor and Khabib, it's a bit of a wash. So the bad blood kind of drags out longer.
Yep.
With the result. All right, now let's talk about rematches.
Good morning, Mr. Luke Thomas. This is Charles Jalen calling out of Atlanta, Georgia. My question is regarding this Conor and Khabib rematch. If the UFC books this rematch immediately and Conor loses the exact same way, would this kill his aura, so to speak? Would they be making a mistake booking Conor against, on paper, and literally the worst matchup he could ever have?
Right.
If he loses again, would that pretty much kill their cash cow? What are your thoughts on that, man? Thanks for taking my call.
Shouts to ATL Georgia. What can we do for you? By the way, I'm from Marietta High School, so shouts to ATL. Okay, here's what I would say. Passions for fighters die hard. It takes a long time for people who love a fighter to stop loving him. But so if you list again, would Conor stop being a star or something? No. However, would it affect badly his image? I would argue yes. This is not the fight for him to have right now. He needs to go fight somebody else. I think it's not an easier fight per se, although maybe that's a way to look at it, but someone who's got a skill set more in keeping with his own. And I think if you just put this guy out there, and let's say he loses the exact same way, Danny, to say that wouldn't affect his market power is not true. It wouldn't turn him into a non-star, but it would definitely knock him down a peg or two or three.
I agree with your analysis there. The only key to that right there is that you know that if you book the rematch, a few months from now, that thing's going to kill on pay-per-view, right?
Yes.
If you put him up against Nate Diaz and he wins, I think the rematch will even be bigger just because he's got, some wind behind him. But also, the Nate Diaz fight is not a given. Like, Nate Diaz is a tough dude. He could very well win it as well.
True.
So it's a gamble. What do you think business-wise would be most, like, I guess, the safer bet? Go straight forward to the rematch or have him fight someone else?
Have him fight someone else. Sorry. Yeah. It's a very bad idea. If Khabib goes in there, and by the way, everyone's like, Conor can get better in the rematch. Right, so can Khabib. Yeah. Not a good idea.
Let's talk about Tony Ferguson.
Okay.
Interesting character.
Speaking of Tony.
Hey, Luke, this is Drew from an impoverished shithole called Lewiston, Maine. Listen, the Tony Ferguson fight the other week got me thinking about how Tony, as good of a fighter as he is, gets hit a lot. Seems to be a staple of a Tony Ferguson fight where he gets put in serious danger and finds a way out of it. A fighter like that can only lean on that fact and their chin for so long. So how much longer do you think it will be until we start seeing the decline of Tony Ferguson? And what fighter on the UFC roster could really exploit the shortcoming of his? Thanks.
So, what's funny? On my radio show on Friday, I had Kevin Lee on. And Kevin Lee said the exact same thing. In fact, Kevin Lee thinks that he is not quite shop-worn, that being Tony, but that Tony is taking a lot of damage and people aren't acknowledging that fact. Now, he said that Tony looked slow and lethargic and didn't have his legs under him. I don't agree with that at all. Mm-hmm. But I do think that Kevin's got a bit of a point, Danny, that Tony does take a fair bit of damage. And he's, I think, 35 years old. So I would say, he has obviously kept himself in impeccable condition, the knee injury notwithstanding. I don't know who the right guy is to exploit it, but I do wonder if he gets into some kind of war, if that might put him over the edge, because he's had enough damage where he hasn't crossed that line, but he might be close.
I don't agree. I mean, the dude snapped his leg, and he came back, 6 months later, 5 months later?
5 months later.
And fought. So he went through a training camp. I mean, Dominic Cruz was out for years for similar injuries.
Not at 35.
So, I think Tony Ferguson is somewhat somebody else. That
That's
guy.
True. That's true.
And also, I just want to add to this. He said it. He hasn't sparred in years. That's so smart of him.
Yep.
And how much damage do you take from sparring? Tons. And people don't realize that. Yep. And I think most of probably the top lightweights spar. Just an assumption. Just the fact that he's not sparring as well, I like that aspect as well. And, he takes damage well. I mean, he's not getting hit by scrubs. He's not getting dropped by small shots. He's taking shots by very game fighters,
Fair enough.
So I think he's fine. I mean, obviously, there is some damage done. Obviously, you got to keep that into a factor, but I don't think enough to a point where we might see him, in a downhill somewhat sooner or anything like that.
All right. So that's a good argument you make there.
Yeah. Of course. Let's talk about Lewis and DC. We just had DC on the show.
Right.
It seems, a lot of people are just...
By the way, can I just say it's great to have a show where a guest doesn't duff?
Yeah, right.
It's nice. We actually had an extra guest.
Yeah, we had an extra one.
Can you believe it? It hasn't happened in weeks.
Yeah, I mean, booking a live show is difficult.
It's not easy, man.
It's not easy.
Right, go ahead.
All right, let's talk about Lewis DC.
Right.
Hey, Luke. Hey, Danny. This is David from the great country of Austria. I'm a huge fan. Keep up the good work. And here's my question. Everybody is talking about Daniel Cormier. What's next after his fight against Derrick Lewis? And I want to know, it sounds like nobody is really giving Derrick Lewis a chance in this fight.
So I'm gonna cut it right there, but it is a fair point that he brings up. Everyone's talking about, okay, what's next? What's next for DC? Jones, or is the Brock Lesnar fight still on the table? What about Derrick Lewis though? I mean, the guy can win this, right? I mean, would you agree?
Yes, although, I mean, there's a reason. You're talking about a guy in Cormier who, when he was in the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix, they were calling him the Black Fedor. I mean, were it not for the Jones fights, look, if he had never dropped out of heavyweight, would he be the greatest heavyweight of all time? I bet he would have put together the kind of resume to, like, I would favor him over, I don't know about Kane necessarily, but because they wouldn't have fought, but I would favor him over every other heavyweight of his era easily. So the question is, do you have to take Derrick Lewis's power seriously? Yes, of course you do. Do you have to take all the other things, the intangibles, the heart that he showed? Absolutely, yes, you do. You cannot take him lightly. But if you're just thinking about probabilities, so there's possibilities, probabilities, and certainties. If you're just thinking about the probability of it all, the chances are extraordinarily high that DC wins. But to your point, I thought that Volkov was going to walk away with it, and he didn't. It's just, this ain't Volkov, man. This is another level. So is it possible? It is possible, but it's more probable that DC walks away with it relatively easily, I think.
Do you think it's a big gamble by the UFC? I mean, also, Cormier is going injured.
I asked him about the New York thing. It makes me nervous, man.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, hey, your lips are chapped and you feel sad. We're not going to approve this fight. What? You didn't sleep last night? Canceled. It's like, both these guys have, like, literally noteworthy injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Not like devastating injuries, but they're not. It's not. We're not guessing. So I'm knock on wood, right? But I'm a little nervous about it, man.
Well, we'll see once we get to
I know, and it's here in New York. I'm like kind of excited for it now, but
yeah, we'll see. All right, this is an interesting point. This is actually from a call that we got, last week, but we just didn't have time to feature it, and I think it's a great point that very few people talk about, and it's something that I notice all the time.
Danny, Luke, Matt from Los Angeles. How about a hot take on who is to blame? UFC says they had all the security, they had all the police. And I'm watching back this fight, and in the ring, it's just a bunch of old fat guys. And not like kind of old or kind of fat, but like really fat and really old. What the fuck are those guys supposed to do? Anyway,
that is an awesome question. That is such a good question.
Have you ever seen the fighters walk out and then you look at the bodyguards? It's usually the people who work for the venues.
Yeah.
And these guys are getting close to. They look like 70. I mean,
bro, that is such a funny question. So what's funny? When I first moved to New York City, I had no money. I had $500 to my name that was supposed to last me for 2 months. Danny, you could attest to the fact that $500 in New York City doesn't get you very far.
Nope. So gets you a beer.
I literally was going through this was back when payphones still existed. I was going through payphones and trying to find change just so I can get on the subway. I was so poor, and I tried to get jobs bouncing, and I had a big problem doing that because I was huge at the time. I was still in the Marine Corps, I was lifting weights, but have you seen the bouncers in New York City? They're all like 6'10", 400 pounds, right?
Big dudes.
Because they all come from agencies that recruit them. Like all the guys who don't make it to the pros in the NFL, they recruit them. Have you ever seen like Floyd's guys?
Yeah, those dudes.
They're all huge.
Like 300 pounds.
These venues, these newer venues, they don't do any of that apparently.
Yeah.
They don't hire from the same agencies. I found that out. So I'm not sure who they're hiring, but it ain't those guys. But if you get the guys who are bouncers here in NYC, bro, that fight gets stopped a lot faster. Because it's not fist fighting, it's controlling chaos. And these bouncers here, I mean, I'm a large man, and these bouncers here make me look very small. So that's what but those guys are expensive. Like these guys who like are 400 pounds and 6'7", they get work at the big clubs because that's who has the money to pay them. So.
Yeah. But did you notice that? Have you noticed that?
Yes. Well, there's the one guy, he's an African-American guy. He's big and fat, but he used to be a pro football player. He works for the commission.
Yeah.
He actually carries a badge. You can see him, but you're right, dude. Their security there, they looked a little bit trifling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They got I don't know, maybe upgrade.
They need, you know what they need? They need the Boz body action system. That's what they need.
Or the McGregor fast, right? To get nice and agile to hold down.
Fucking A.
All right, you want to do one more, or you want to?
No, we got time for a couple more. I'm just gonna run like I always do to my next job.
Sounds good.
All right.
So let's talk about Cyborg Nunes, a fight that's not being talked about at all.
All right.
Really.
All right.
Hey, Luke, this is Lance from Kentucky. Just wanted to ask you real quick, do the results of Rory versus Gegard give us a window into what the outcome of Cyborg versus Nunes will be in terms of both having similar skill sets, but also differing in weight? Thanks. Love the show.
No, I don't think so. Amanda has not taken the kind of damage Rory has taken. I would actually say she's probably as physically talented. Dean Thomas talked to me about this. He's like, dude, I am telling you. I know everyone's coach big ups their fighter. Oh, this guy's amazing. This lady's amazing. She's the best. He's like, dude, I'm telling you, she hits like a man. You must believe me. And then I know Misha Tate now. She works with me at SiriusXM. Bro, she was telling me, she was like, I'd never been hit like that ever in my life. Not even, she told me, in sparring, which includes women and men. She said that the power that Amanda Nunes possesses, and it was effortless power. She wasn't like, trying to He-Man it across. Just pop, pop. She said she couldn't believe how physical she was. Now, we'll see about the gas tank. We'll see about the overall game. But in terms of like the physicality difference, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I would also say that there's a bigger jump in weight between 170 and 185 than it is from 135 to 145.
By the way, Gegard, a guy who's fought as high as 205, too.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So.
And also, Chris Cyborg has made 140, too. I know,
barely.
Not the best shape, but she's made it.
Barely.
And Amanda Nunes, she's a big girl.
Yeah.
I've seen her in person, and she's just dense. She just looks.
She's not a small fry at all.
Yeah, exactly. No. And I agree damage-wise. I mean, Nunes, I don't think historically has taken much damage throughout her career.
Yeah.
And we've seen 35ers have some success against Cyborg, like Holly Holm,
Yeah. Hey, is that Esther behind you?
Yes.
Hey, Esther, say hi. Can you wave? Where is she? No, other way. To your left. Hi, Esther. Hey, there's the world's best combat sports photographer. Pretty great.
Sure.
All right, what's next?
All right. Let's do one more question, McGregor, and we are going to tweets.
Okay.
Hello, Luke. It's Darius from Romania. So I have a question. Do you think Conor McGregor's star is fading away? Because I'm not looking forward for any of next fights he possibly can do. I don't know. It's just my feeling, or it's everyone's.
Okay. By the way, shouts to the home of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Austria, calling in, and now Count Dracula, apparently from Romania. Nice to see that. Here's what I would say. I don't know if you agree, Danny. I've definitely noticed a little bit of a softening intensity for the fandom that he had. Very slight, very minor. But the idea that, like, if what you're suggesting is if he fought again relatively soon, let's say within 6 months, that it wouldn't do well, I don't buy that at all. I mean, his star power is still extraordinary. He visited the worthless POS Dallas Cowboys, the worst sports organization on the planet, whose fans are literally vermin. And it was everywhere all over the sports news. People loved it. And it just
can't be worse than Real Madrid fans, though, right?
Well, I mean, those are knights in shining armor, you absolute prick. Anyway, point being is, did you see him at the game? Everyone was loving him. Jerry was backing him, backslapping him, and the fans were all there, and then the players loved it.
He had a great throw, too. Like
the throw was, he had a sick spiral, you know what I'm saying? Laces out the whole bit. I'm just saying, I get that some fans believe he got his comeuppance. But the idea that his popularity has waned in any kind of real or significant way, don't buy that at all. He's going to fight again, and he's going to get rich.
And I think, if anything, it's gotten bigger. He was just at a Migos concert, and they knew who he was, and they were giving him a chains and taking pictures and whatnot. Yeah. I think, if anything, he's bigger than ever. However, I would like to say that what is fading away is his aura of invincibility.
Correct.
I mean, against Eddie Alvarez, I would remember watching that, and I was just like, this is something else. Yep. It was almost like watching Anderson Silva when he was fighting the top dogs and just destroying them and looking.
It was the same feeling I got when Anderson beat Forrest Griffin.
Yeah,
I thought that is a once-in-a-generation talent. He was on top of the world at UFC 205.
His speed, his timing, everything was just perfect. Yep. And I think that has gone down, especially Khabib exposing him, on the ground. That has
not exposing him,
but setting a blueprint out there. Like, look, you can wrestle this guy and you can turn him into a different fighter.
Yep.